Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. And we've got a couple returning books here, but we've got a number of events that are starting up in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. And we've got some information on that. But let's get started with your pick, Fritz. What did you go with?
So my pick this week is Batgirl issue 8. I've had at least a copy or an issue 2 of this book up here before. This issue is part 2 of this kind of like little flashback arc that we're doing where the framing devices, Cass is on a train, she's reading her mom's journal, her mom, Lady Shiva, of just kind of like how she became Lady Shiva, like how like through all the years and identities she wore, like how she became like the quote unquote like deadliest fighter in the world.
Yeah.
And the first issue of this arc, the previous one, was kind of like getting into like how her and her sister grew up like in this kind of like monastery, like trying to like have this like peaceful life, having some like let's call it familial troubles, kind of like make that a little difficult. So they've got on the run, they're out in the wider world, they're constantly training, trying to like prepare themselves for whenever they have to like face these problems again. And in this issue, if you could maybe guess from the cover, they run into some characters that if you're big into like the fighting characters in DC, you're familiar with Bronze Tiger and Richard Dragon.
Yep.
And the whole,
no Karate Kid though, huh?
No Karate Kid. The new movie's coming out though, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated to the
But this issue, a lot of it's just kind of like flashing through these kind of like quirky adventures that the four of them get up to. Like there's a lot of like fun little throwbacks to like some kind of like 70s and 80s over the top like kung fu action stuff. Yeah. There's a great bit where like, because again, it's a bunch of vignettes. So there's one where they're like fighting on skis. There's one where they're like fighting this like giant praying mantis. Like yeah. And so there's all that, and there's a guest artist for this arc. I'm going to double check the name because I'm not familiar with them, but I really like their stuff. Let me find them here quick. Of course, right when I need to find them is when I can't find them. There we go. Isaac Goodhart.
Familiar.
Yeah, like not familiar, but like everything that they've been doing these last couple of issues has been super good. But in the middle of all that, like kind of like fun like kung fu action, there's this kind of like growing tension between Shiva and her sister, because Shiva still wants to get like revenge for what was done to them for like having been put on the run all this time, whereas her sister's just like, but what if we just like lived a good life? Like what if we were just like happy?
Yep.
Do you remember being happy? Like, and so there's this growing tension. There's some other forces at work. There's a certain character that if you're familiar with the history of Lady Shiva and Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, that you won't be super surprised to see them show up. And obviously nothing good comes of that. And so where it goes from here is we're definitely getting more into like the darker aspects of like what makes Shiva. And this whole series has been super fun. I know there's a lot of Cassandra like fans that have just been really like wanting this book for the longest time after she got like wiped from existence for a bit in the 52, and then like she got brought back but never really got like the spotlight. She did get like, she got to appear in a bunch of books. She got a duo book with Stephanie Brown a couple years ago that I know a lot of people enjoyed. But now it's like, here she is, she's Batgirl, she's kind of like front and center. And I mean, if I remember correctly, she was actually the first Batgirl to like have her own proper ongoing. Like Barbara Gordon never really had one herself. She was just like in the Batman books.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
She was the backup story.
Yeah. And from what I remember, like her original run went for a while. And reading this, I can definitely see why. Like she's a very like interesting character compared to like, because she's very similar to a lot of the other Bat family characters, but she's also like very much her own thing, but in a way that I think like really like helps her like connect with them. Like she understands like in her own special way like how a lot of them like feel.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that makes her interesting is that like she isn't always the best at connecting with people, which is funny because she can read people super easily.
Right. Yep.
And that kind of like dynamic when you have to deal with this kind of life is a very like cool way to approach it all. And yeah, no, this current run I think has done a really good job of doing that. Like her like trying to reconcile like Lady Shiva is this like she can be a murderer, she can be manipulative, she can be like cruel, but she can also be like caring and like a teacher and my mother.
Right.
And at the very least, she's kind of usually been better than my dad ever was. So like, yeah, it's just fun having to see her like try and like figure out like, how do I feel about this person?
Yeah.
And this arc is really kind of like delving into like really giving her everything she needs to know to like maybe like finally like land on that.
Sure. But
yeah, no, absolutely have been enjoying the series. Speaking of a series that we've both been enjoying this one. Your pick this week.
Yeah, I'm going with Absolute Superman number 8. Jason Aaron is keeping it going on here. This book has probably been the most pleasant surprise out of the initial 3 for the Absolute books for me, because I figured Batman was either going to be really, really good or I was really just not going to get it, you know? So I had, kind of a range of expectations on that, but the its good range was very high. Yeah. Absolute Wonder Woman, I thought, was probably the surest book to be a hit because it felt like the creative team dynamic was really good. And like, I just feel like there's, I don't know, kind of an easier way to have that character be able to translate into a different universe. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there was the added benefit because like with Snyder doing Batman again, there was always like, oh, he's already like done so much Batman. Right. Like what can he really like do new to bring to this? Whereas with Absolute Wonder Woman, like I don't know that Thompson had ever really done much Wonder Woman stuff before. So like there wasn't this like burden of expectation. There was just like, oh, let's see what she can do. Yeah. And to a certain extent, there was also that with Aaron on Superman, but we've also had a lot of more like mixed feelings on his stuff. So it's just like, well, what are we going to get?
Right. And I also felt like the Superman title was clouded in more mystery about the direction that they were going. Yeah. Like with Wonder Woman, it's like, oh, she's still in Amazon, but she's from hell. Yeah, like well, what does that mean? And then it's like Batman, he doesn't have his wealth, and it's like, oh, okay, so what's that gonna do? But Superman, it was interesting, and you get into it right away at the beginning of this volume, but it's been really fun to see in this telling of Superman. He saw how bad things can end for a world that's unwilling to see its own flaws and try to aspire to something better. And so then he ends up here and he meets some really good people so that he gets connected and grounded and has a vested interest. But then he sees the worst of humanity. Yeah. And he's trying to figure out a way to not betray who he is while still trying to make the world a better place. And the people who don't want him to do that keep raising the stakes. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at the beginning of this. He's visiting someplace that he has very fond memories of, was connected to, that these people have destroyed purposefully. And then he has a run-in with someone who has an axe to grind with him, who also just destroyed people for the sake of destroying them because he could and because he was angry. And we've also got Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane showing up in this issue, and they're different. Yeah, their
dynamic is very interesting. They do not like each other.
Yeah, well, so there was a funny line, something along the lines of, well, now I know you're lying because this helmet's super cool.
Yeah, no, I love this version. Like, he's very much like, he's got like a cause and belief, but he's also kind of like still that like dorky kid who's just like, no, this is cool. This is like, I'm cool. Yeah. Like, it's fun.
And Lois is still really, really driven. I mean, if she's got a defining characteristic throughout all kind of the iterations of her that are worthwhile, she's about the most driven person you're ever going to meet. And in this, it's really interesting because she grew up believing one thing.
Yeah.
And then something happened involving Superman to make her question that. And while not ready to completely abandon a lot of the tenets of that belief, she's questioning it enough to push away from it a bit to see what is really going on. Like, she's not trusting everything anymore.
Yeah.
And this was a pivotal issue as far as that all goes, because now there are definitely going to be, looked like there might be some ramifications to it earlier. Now there are definitely going to have to be some ramifications. So,
well, because we talked about before, like most of like the first three Absolute books so far, they had their like first arc, and then they had like 2-issue interlude arc. So we had like the Mr. Freeze with Batman, we had the Hell arc with Wonder Woman, Superman. We had like kind of like touching on some like stuff from his past, some stuff with Brainiac, and now like this being like the new
Janitor Brainiac, and the flashback stuff. Yeah.
And so like this being like the first like real like next proper arc, like they really just kind of hit the ground running. Just like we've done a lot of the setup and everything. So like let's go now. Let's like
and it feels like Aaron's maybe kind of rebooted a little bit because it felt like for a little while there, and this has been a while ago, but it felt like for a while there it was, I've got this kind of formula that I'm using for storytelling, and I'm just going to plug different characters into it, and that's going to kind of work. You know, the dynamic of the big threat that they're up against, kind of how that gets rolling, and then how they're going to approach it, and then we get their backs all the way to the wall before they, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like real world building, which I think is kind of one of Aaron's strong suits from early on in his career. So I'm really enjoying it. The art is really good. And there are some high stakes here. The world is about to find out that Superman is not completely invulnerable. So.
And that was one of my favorite things in here. Like because we really haven't had to see him like in like a real like proper fight. Like it's been mostly like he's just strong enough, but like there's moments here where it's just like, oh yeah, and like dude doesn't actually like know how to fight. Like he's just had to rely on the fact that he's just stronger than everyone, and when faced with this thing where he can't just like punch his way out of it, he's kind of screwed.
And he's been holding back this entire time because he is so strong, and this Superman also has a tendency to leave fights. Like he's and part of that is the dynamic of he's not in a world that's got his back, so if he doesn't leave, then things have to escalate, which he, again, is not interested in really doing. But I think he's come to the conclusion now, I think he's going to come to the conclusion out of this story arc that he cannot do this alone. And that's part of this whole interesting dynamic that is here. He's been trying to figure out a way to be successful in giving people, their autonomy, their rights, their freedom, but he hasn't figured out how to do it. And I think that a big part of that is because he can't do it all by himself. And it's going to be really interesting to see how everything lines up now going forward. So, but Saul makes a good point. Like neither of these two groups are doing what they should be doing. So it's going to be interesting to see. Is he going to form his own group? Is he going to change one of the other groups? Is he going to change to fit with one of the groups? It's going to be interesting to see. But the players behind all of this are really good.
But hey, speaking of the players behind some fitting alliances, segue, baby. We've got Imperial #1 from Marvel.
All right, so now this is, for a few different reasons, one of my most anticipated books in a long time. Jonathan Hickman revitalized the X-Men in the Marvel Universe with a big... he didn't like retcon continuity. He changed continuity from that moment going forward. And he did it by being part of a creative team that set up a huge stage for them to be able to operate on. And the dynamics of how that worked with the governments around the world and society at large was really interesting. And it went interstellar.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's funny because it's not the first time, because to a lesser extent, he did a similar thing with some of his stuff on like Fantastic Four and the Avengers.
Yep.
He did recently with the Ultimate books, which he's still been like working on and helping with that.
Yep.
And so it's just like, well, hey, what's like one of the next things we can have and maybe take a stab at?
Right. And to my opinion, he's writing the best superhero book being published currently in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So.
But here we've got the start of him taking his little stab at the Marvel Cosmic realm, which for like a lot, like, not that there haven't been like cosmic books or good cosmic books or anything like that. Like, I've enjoyed the last couple volumes of Guardians. There's been some like good little one-off things here and there. People seem to be enjoying the current Phoenix run.
Yeah.
But like, there hasn't been this real kind of like sense of like the Marvel like cosmic like space stuff like that you had during the early and mid 2000s with like Ant-Man and Landing doing like Annihilation and all the stuff coming out of that with like their Guardians and everything. Like, there hasn't been the sense of like this like really like almost its own like universe that if it was like separate from the stuff on Earth could be its own like living, breathing like franchise.
It's been more like following individual characters or groups as they float through the cosmos, as opposed to looking at the galactic Marvel universe as a whole, and what are the big events that are happening that are tying across multiple civilizations and so forth.
And there's been like some attempts at that, but even some stuff like Empire or King of Black, books that are like ostensibly have like a certain like cosmic level to them, like are pretty Earth focused. Like there's not really a whole lot of those books that really touch on like space events per se.
Yeah. Well, and it's been years for a lot of those.
Yeah.
Empire was how long ago?
2020.
Yeah, so 5 years. So it feels kind of like they hit pause on it for a little bit, like they were letting it rest. But now we're off with a massive story with intrigue, and it's affecting multiple civilizations and planets and the leaders thereof, and we're getting some of the popular Marvel cosmic characters showing up, but not a ton of them.
I mean, like there's a lot of the ones you'd expect, like obviously like in terms of, so I think we should probably get into the actual like what's the book about first. So the plot of the book is someone is killing various galactic leaders of various like some of them are like ones you've probably never heard of. Some of them are like, oh no, I know this character. Like, this is like... And
a number of them have died before they figured out that it was murder.
And that's the thing. Like, they come to realize, like, oh, each one of them has, like, died from the same thing. So, like, it's clearly, like, there's a plot afoot. But on top of that, this is all happening right in the middle of a bunch of the galactic powers trying to get together to kind of, like, they're trying to set up some new, like, trade lanes. Are trying to figure out like, hey, how can we like more cohesively like govern together? Like we're like, because none of them are, because for a long time a lot of like Marvel space stuff was defined by like, oh, like the Kree and the Skrull war, the Shi'ar are doing like their thing.
It's been very territorial.
But like for the last couple of years, like things have been like pretty chill. Like the Kree Skrull are like they're one unified alliance now, and most of the other powers are for either they're like kind of like calmed down, or things have happened that have been like, well, we don't really have the resources to like wage war anymore.
Which like, I think kind of makes sense. I mean, after the Annihilation Wave and all of that kind of stuff, there's been kind of this need to rebuild. And so like they're trying taking care of business in their backyard kind of.
So like there's this moment of like we could like make something like new and great. But then also, like, who's poisoning everyone? So, like, there's this, like, huge level of distrust we've got of, like, all these different players. Like, and it's fun because, like, it's a mix of, like, a lot of the people you'd expect because you've got Star-Lord and Nova are, like, teaming up to investigate. But you've also got the Hulks are here, and they are not happy.
Right.
Yeah, like, there's a great bit where, like, the Hulk is in a fight and the guy's fighting. It's just like, mercy. And she's like, wrong planet. It's like, and he's, I mean, Hulk is obviously a character we really enjoy. The current run has been up here a couple times.
Yep.
I think we started doing these after Immortal Hulk ended, which is probably a good thing because every time an issue that came out, it would just have been Immortal Hulk week every week.
Immortal Hulk is one of the best comic runs of modern history.
As someone who is actually in the middle of finishing his reread of the book, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
But like, so tossing him into a situation is always like going to make it like more fun. And tossing someone whose whole thing is smashing things into a thing where like everything's about like being like underhanded and like doing these like politics and
a lot of calculation.
Yeah, not his thing. He's just like, no, point me in the direction I'm going to break it.
Right. Yeah. Well, because it is. Yeah, it's World Breaker Hulk. You know. It's going to be interesting. I'm really excited about this. So there are very few event books now that get me excited to read all of the side books and everything. But She-Hulk's going to be featured in one. I'm really excited to read it. The main book, obviously, I thought was it's an oversized issue, which was totally necessary. There's nothing wasted in here. The art is great. Everything about this.
Yeah.
But I love the political intrigue on this kind of scope. And I think the only way to really do this well is to have it in space, because it gives you, the stakes are so much higher. They could wipe out an entire planet, or and they've done that before.
Yeah.
So in both Marvel and DC, so like the stakes are so high here, and that whatever you think is happening is not what's happening.
Yeah.
We're not going to know what's really going on until Hickman decides we're ready to know what's going on. Yeah.
Also, as someone who...
Wakanda's involved. We forgot to mention Wakanda's involved.
Yeah, how they're involved, you might want to read to find out.
Yeah.
But I also just love, as someone who grew up with the early 2000s Power Pack miniseries that Marvel did a lot of, I'm always happy to see like some of the aliens from that, like the Chameleons and the Snark show up. So they get their little moments in there too. Love my little alien horse dudes.
Yeah.
But also gotta talk about the artists Federico Vincentini and even Coelho. They share the art views on here. I think they kind of like split between like Coelho does like the opening and back end parts, and then Vincentini does kind of like the two middle chapters, because it's kind of like split into 4 chapters here. And both their styles just really work for this stuff. They can really handle the action super well. They handle the quieter moments between characters really well.
Yeah. No, stylistically, it's very cool. Layout wise, it's very cool, and story wise, it's just a pleasure to read.
Like you were kind of saying there, if there's a word to describe this book, it's cool. It's a very cool book. It's smart. It's fun. There's a couple really good like bits of dialogue between characters. Like I love Amadeus Cho, because he's just like no nonsense in his own way, similar to the Hulk, but more like but who's really in charge, guys?
Right.
He's more of a like, nah, cut the BS. Like, what's happening?
Yep.
Like, it's great.
And this is going to be a jumping off point for something revitalizing. Cosmic.
I'd say expect some announcements about a bunch of new like space books. Like, I'd be shocked if there's not like a new Guardians and a new Nova book coming out of this. They definitely make a very big point of mentioning here, like, Rich is like one of only 2 Novas left. Like, it feels like they're hammering home on that in a way that's just like, maybe something will come of that.
Yeah, could be very interesting. So, I highly recommend. All right, well, what else was close for you this week?
There was honestly a lot of other good stuff this week. This is probably my favorite issue of Absolute Green Lantern.
I would agree.
We're really kind of getting into like what I feel like a lot of this run's going to be about. It's stuff I probably should have figured would have been the case, like, because I know Ewing loves his kind of like more like esoteric, like occult mysticism stuff. So like the fact that he's kind of like weaving that in, it's just like, I love that. I'm happy to see it here. So really enjoy that. Immortal Thor, we're on the penultimate issue of that before its upcoming relaunch. Really strong issue. Really enjoyed the new issue of the DC Pride special that they do every June. It was really fun. Like because normally with the Pride issues at both DC and Marvel, it's usually like, here's just a bunch of like kind of like one-off stories. here there's kind of that, but they've also got like there's an actual like running main story like that connects all of them in a really fun way. It involves a bunch of like characters getting trapped in these kind of like dream dimensions almost. Like
sure.
There's a great one where it's Apollo Midnighter stuck in this kind of like 1950s world, and every time Midnighter goes to like bash in someone's head with a crowbar, they like puff into confetti before he can, and he starts getting really mad about it. So it's a really fun issue. Anything particular for you that didn't make it?
Ultimate Incursion came out this week. That was that's going to have big ramifications also. So we've got all this stuff going on. And then we've got the Marvel Knights, The World to Come, which is the Black Panther book. And that left me with more questions than I had answers.
Yeah,
like so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But Quesada's on the art, so it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah, we were talking yesterday. You were especially like his layouts are just
crazy.
Like like you remember like why he was such a popular artist in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like really hasn't lost a step there. I feel
No, not at all. And with we talked about kind of how the artist's ability to go hyper realistic now kind of adds a whole nother level to Quesada's stuff. It's pretty bonkers, but lots of good stuff. I'm also really excited. I know that we're just starting to kind of we're a little ways off yet, but I'm excited for the Captain America relaunch.
Yeah, I mean we're not too far out. We're like a month away now.
Yeah, so. There's a bunch of good stuff that's just on the horizon. It feels like summer is always a really good time for stuff. So
whether it's like stuff that's coming out or when they're announcing cool new stuff, because I mean we got San Diego's next month. Who knows what they're going to be showing up there?
Right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of in the last couple of years they've kind of the movie stuff is starting to tone down a little bit. That's still obviously a big place for them to drop trailers and info on the whole movie and TV show stuff and whatever. But it does feel like they're kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, we've got these comic books too.
Yeah,
let's kind of focus on some of that again, some more. So
speaking of which, something we kind of talked about yesterday, I can segue into that here quick, but obviously a lot of you saw the announcement last week of the new Marvel DC crossovers that they're doing. We've got, I believe,
Deadpool, Batman.
Yeah, so it's Deadpool Batman is in September from Marvel, and then in November it's Batman Deadpool from DC. And I've had, obviously, a bunch of people were asking like they can get signed up for those. They're not in the system yet, so once they are, definitely get back. Like that should be probably happening later this month, because usually that's about when the stuff for September gets released. Like the solicits we mean. So the first one will be available, so you can definitely get back to us then. We'll get you signed up. And that brings us to a thing we were talking about yesterday. If there's a book that you want to make sure you get a copy of, you definitely want to let us know to have, even if it's just like you want to like a single issue of it. You don't want like to get the whole run or something. You just
want to try, dip your toe.
Yeah, make sure you let us know, because we can get you signed up. We can make sure you have one set aside. Because don't get us wrong, sometimes for a lot of books you don't have to worry about. There's usually going to be a copy sitting here for a bit. You can grab one. There's a lot of books, if you don't get in here in time, you're just not going to be able to get a copy, because either we can't get one on order or it's going to be a while. If you're within 3 weeks of release, the chances of you getting it have dropped dramatically. If you're 3 weeks out or earlier, we can for certain get it for you. And that goes for variants too. And that's a great reason to hop on the app or the website, because you can go to the issue on the app and slide through all the different variants without leaving the issue. So it's really cool. I was doing that last night with a customer who's looking for the new Punisher. It's just, that way help us help you. It's easier for you. It's easier for us. Also, if you're just in the store, we can like get you signed up for stuff. Like whatever we can do to make it easy for you to make sure you get what you want when you want it, we're always there for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, that all having been said, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, and get into your local comic shop, and check out the Comic Hub app and website to be sure to get signed up for everything that you want to get. We will be back next week, because there's going to be more comic books next Wednesday. and we'll be here to review them for you on the next Pulp Picks. Until then, enjoy the reading.
Yay! Cover the frog! Oh, hey, tie back to the frog in my throat. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.